Hello everyone, it is Christine here and I am back to work on Roxy's Journal of Stitchery, the field notes project that we're doing and the prompt that we've got for wild fields or wild flowers. Now I'll link to the previous episode where I shared the story of Fanny and Sharsley, who was a watercolour painter who captured wildflowers in and around Melbourne and published a book, The Wildflowers Around Melbourne, in 1867 when she returned back to England from Melbourne. So I've created this page which I designed in Canva. I'll link to that video as well, which shows you how you can use the free version of Canva to get pages like this, incorporating public domain images, which is what I've used from Fanny's watercolour works. Also added some of the free graphics from within Canva, added text, added nice little sort of graphics that sit behind the text. I'll bring you down closer to it soon. I just wanted to sort of show you the overall page design, and I've been doing lots of really detailed, just using sewing cotton, stitching into the fabric design. I've also mounted the fabric on a piece of fabric, and I'm planning to make a little pocket, so I thought I'd show you how that's going to work as well. So all my field notes pages are being mounted on comic book card. I'll just keep that little needle there because I'm working a section at the moment. So I've got a backing piece that I've just wrapped the fabric that I'm using as the backing around. So that's just a fully wrapped piece of cardboard. And then this piece that we'll be stitching into, and which I've just got attached with clips at the moment, I'm going to leave this folded over edge, so I've double folded it over, so I've not got a raw edge on the inside. I'm going to leave that one open, at least in this bottom section, so that I can have a little tag that pulls out. Now this is going to be a fabric tag, but I've decided to put a bit of card in it to give it a bit of stiffness, just to make it easier to put in and to pull out. Whereas if I just had the fabric, it would end up being a bit floppy to get into the pockets. So I've got a piece of card that's just sort of cut smaller than the fabric around it. And so that's going to be a double-sided tag, and we'll do some work on that today as well. And I'll probably shortly bring you down closer to the work and show you in a bit more detail how that has all been stitched so far, and we can do some stitching together, which is just a way to show you really, detailed botanical stitching that you can do using a single strand of just regular sewing cotton. So I'll give you just a look at the page from up here, and then we'll go down. And what I'll leave it on the card for now because it's probably easy to show you. I'll take it off so you can kind of see how I'm constructing the two pages in a moment. So I'm just going to bring you down, just where I can see you and where you can see everything a lot better in close up. So you'll see that I've stitched right around the outside of the page, just using a vintage crochet cotton. So I've just done stitching around the fabric, and that's also helped to hold down my little folded over bit of fabric. I've also just used a off-white Semco cotton polyester to do detailed little running stitches around some of the design elements. So I've done it around these little design elements, done it around the butterfly over there. That's Travis having a drink, if you can hear someone making snorkeling noises. Travis has just come back from a walk with Alex. I've done it around this little flower up there. We can probably do that around, because I haven't done it around this one here yet, so we can do that together. You'll also see I've done detailed little stitching of the little pansy leaves. I've done that using, I think I used this Orifil thread. I've used some pink cotton to do some little daisy petals. I haven't done any other stitching on that yet, but I could probably do a bit of yellow on that one. I've used a grey purple for these little inner sort of almost like the little stamens of this flower. So not trying to stitch the entire flower. And then I've used two different pinks. I had a vintage roll of this pink, and then in a op shop haul of goodies I got this really lovely almost fluoro pink. So I've used a mix of those colours in here. You probably can't even immediately looking at it tell that they're different colours. And I've done just like little Y stitches or just little up and down stitches just to capture the essence of it. I've done it over this side. I'm going to leave the other side as is. Because I think often in these botanical drawings you'd see one section that had a bit more detail and then another section that was a bit more sketchy, so I thought that could be interesting. I've also used sort of Y stitching to do stitching down here. I can probably show you, I might just bring it just over to here but then leave these ones sort of unfinished as well. I have also done tiny little French knots, single, so sewing cotton again, yellow vintage sewing cotton, and just single French knots to create these little wattle-like blooms. And down here we'll do some of these together. I'm doing loopier ones with a mix of a grey, which is almost a grey sort of mauvey colour. Where has that one gone in my threads? Over here. So using this one and this purple for these little purple and white flowers. I've forgotten what they're called, but they're very prevalent around here. In fact, a number of these blooms, these ones, I'm just having a look if they're close by. Let me just go and grab, I think I picked a tiny bit of those on the walk today, but I didn't bring it to the table. Let me see if I can quickly find it. It's in the bag still. There we are. A little bit the worse for wear because it's been in the little dog pouch, but yeah, this is one of the little Australian natives that you see there. They have these little stamens and they almost look like little snails. So I thought I would show you that one. And yeah, I'll show you how I'm doing these slightly loopier ones because these little blooms do have a bit of sort of texture. They almost have a little circle loop and then an outer little petal. And because they are a sort of a paler purple and then a more intense, I thought I'd use the grey because I didn't have a pale purple, but it would give that sense of the paler purple, and then use the purple that I had and use that as two strands together to do the knots. So rather than having to do two separate knots, I've got the two threads together. So we'll probably start with that. And then whether I want to do some stitching into these leaves, I could even just pick up the outer colour, or I could do the vein down the middle, so we can think about that. I might want to do a little bit of stitching of this one trailing, and I might want to do some of these. I had done some other leaves. Oh yeah, I'd done the leaves up here. So I'd done some of those leaves. Again, I probably won't do the whole thing. I could continue up this side and just do the leaves on this side, I suppose. But I want to spend some time with you doing the little tag as well. So let me unclip it now. So the way my pocket is going to be formed is, as I mentioned, a piece of card that I have covered and just used my Yoo-Hoo glue, which is acid-free glue, so I'm happy to use it with fabric, and it works incredibly well. Like, this has just been glued on and it's holding great. I will end up putting some little stitches over the edgy bits, so that's going to be the lower layer. And then this bit, I've mounted my printed fabric onto it. I just cut around it. Sometimes I've been folding it under it. I found that it doesn't really fray very much. Like one little tiny thread came off then, but it holds pretty well. So I've mounted that onto this fabric, and then at this edge I've double folded it over. So it's folded once and then folded again. Ironed it flat, and then I've caught it with this stitch, so that's holding it nice and flat. I could always do an extra lot of stitching down here, but I don't think it's actually necessary. And then that is just going to be left open at that side. And I can even inset it a little bit from the edge if I want to. It doesn't really matter too much. And then it will be glued down and stitched down on all of the other sides. So it'll be folded over and then glued, and then I will just put the extra stitches around the back of it as well. So it'll be first of all glued and then stitched, but that's only once it's all done and all ready to compile. So let's do a few of these. We used to always call these ones the egg and bacon flowers, the yellow and red ones. These ones are very similar. They're just in a purple colour tone. So I might do these ones down here as well. So I'm using a milliner's needle for these. Hopefully I haven't created a knot while I've been waving this around. Just clear, I don't want to catch any threads or anything from underneath. So we've just been out to the Wandy pub for Father's Day. It's Father's Day here in Australia. So Alex got taken out by Travis and I for Father's Day. We're hoping Alex's dad will be coming up with his brother today, but his brother's sick, so they might not be coming up to do a bit of snow skiing together. Not that Alex's dad doesn't ski anymore, but he normally goes up the mountain with the boys and enjoys going for a little bit of a walk and a look around there. But yeah, poor Max is not well, and their dog Dante has hurt his leg as well, so no good. So as you saw, I made a slightly bobbly knot, but all I did was came through a second time to just sort of anchor it down. But yeah, doing the French knot, just doing a single wrap, but I'm trying not to pull them through too tightly because I do want them to be a little bit loose and a little bit loopy, just so I can see both the purple and the sort of grey mauvey coloured thread. Now it's probably off screen actually, just realising that I need to keep my work up here for you. So yeah, just doing slightly bobbly stitches. Right, actually, I'm just going to swing you over a tiny bit so that you're a bit closer to where I'm wanting to work. Just checking on the back that I've not got a tangle or anything. Nope, all is good. So yeah, I don't even mind if I get a little extra loop like that one because it just helps to give the effect of that lighter flower behind. Can you hear the bird tweeting outside? So much bird and wildlife around here. Travis is now happily having a snooze on the rug. Alex is sitting out on the deck enjoying himself. Go. Oops, lost the knot. Sometimes it gets a bit slippy. So yeah, it's a good idea if you do want to kind of almost get your own variegated thread by mixing two threads together. Sorry, it just keeps slipping. I must be trying to do it on a strange angle. So just leaving them a little bit loopy rather than pulling them really, sort of holding them really tight as you pull through, because that's when you get those much tighter little knots that you'll see on the wattle. And I love with this piece that the stitching is so delicate that you don't immediately on looking at it sort of know that it's got all the detailed stitching in it. You might just look at it and think, oh, that's just a printed page, but then when you look closer you see that it is actually quite detailed and quite textural. So I won't do too many of these with you because I'll probably end up boring you. I want to put another one over here though while I'm here. Oops, we're not going to get a knot, are we? Always seems to be the way when I want to do one more, it just decides, but no, I think we're okay. That one was slightly more bobbly, but no, that's pretty good. And I might do just one more over here. It's always that thing, just one more. It's like with kids, just one more story before bed. Okay, so I'll just tie that off at the back for now. I'll keep the thread because I may come back in afterwards and do some more stitching, although that might be enough just to kind of give the sense of it in the foreground. And then I'll show you the little more sort of tight style knots that I'm doing with the yellow. It's always hard to thread these milliner's needles, so wish me luck with this. But they are working really nice for this sort of tighter, smaller stitching. Wow, oh no, I got through, but I've actually managed to mangle my thread. I thought it was going to be a perfect thread. Let's try the other end. If it doesn't work, turn the needle over is a good little tip. I just need to trim that end, I think, as well. If not, we can always switch over to a different needle. Might just trim the other end actually, because that was seemingly threading a bit better. But I prefer to show the trials and the tribulations of stitching. I don't want you to kind of be at home going, why can't I thread this needle? It does happen. There we go. So yeah, that trick of sometimes one end of the thread is easy to thread and one side of the needle is usually easier to thread. So if you're struggling with one or other, yeah, you can flip it over. So if you can see, I've done my tiny little French knots, so we'll continue doing them up here. I find it easiest to do these like at home on the felt mat because I can kind of stick the needle in a little bit to the felt mat and then, oops, no, don't want to do that. We do not want loose bobbly ones here. Okay, we might need to, I think I'm going to just cut that one off and we will, at least where the needle is threaded, so we can just put a new knot in the end of it because that is not the effect that I want. So I'll just re-knot and continue along. Nothing is lost apart from a tiny bit of thread. So I'm just doing a single loop, holding it tight so it doesn't tangle, and just getting a nice tight little bobble. And then just moving a tiny bit along, popping through, doing another French knot, holding it nice and tight. So the main thing is to hold it tight as you're pulling it through so you get a really nice tight little knot. Another one here. Oops. And sometimes the thread gets a bit twisty when you're doing the French knot, so it's actually good to just let your needle swing around. I'm just holding it up and letting the needle swing around to untwist itself. And then we can move across and do the next one. And again, I might leave the ones up the very top undone just because it's kind of nice to be able to see both the stitched version and the natural watercolour version. Kind of think it's staying true to the Nature's Journals Field Notes vibe. But really, there's so many different ways that people are approaching this project. I'm just enjoying the process of storytelling in some of my pieces and capturing things from my own environs. So there you go, that's those ones. Now, while I've got this yellow needle threaded, we might head up to the top and do the little flowers up there. I think I'd mentioned as well, I used a sort of a yellowy green from this variegated reel. I used that to do the little stars in the centres of those flowers. The flowers themselves are quite pale, so I didn't want to overwhelm them. So again, I just did the sort of stameny stameny bits. And I think I'll leave these ones, which are these ones here, unless I just did the little stamens again. I don't know. I'm thinking that I might leave those a bit paler. So we've got our little flowers here. And I might do some, what will I do? I might do little lazy daisy sort of little petally bits, because these look more like a little petaled flower. So let's just do some little loopy. And again, let's leave it with a little bit of looseness to it so it's sitting out a little bit from the page. Do another little petal one here. I might overlap a few just to give the sense of a few petals. So coming through the top with the thread underneath so that I get that lazy daisy stitch. Pulling it but not too tight, and then anchoring the top down with a stitch back into the fabric on the other side of the little loop. And now that one I tightened a little bit too much as I pulled it, but we can probably loosen it up. You can put your needle underneath and just loosen it a bit before you finish that one off. And then I might put another one sort of in the centre so it overlaps the other two. Again, I've pulled that a tiny bit too much, but that's good. So I'll put another one in here, like this. Pop that down into here. So that just gives a nice sense of a little bloom. I'm not sure exactly what these flowers were. So again, we'll do lazy daisy. I guess these are what you call a detached lazy daisy, because we're not forming the whole daisy shape. So anchor that one down at the top. And then again, put the thread under the tip of the needle and bring it through. Anchor it down. Oops, what have I got? I've got that thread there tangling up with this one. Let's just take that little bit off there. So don't need tangles, do I? And then I'll put a third one in. I like to do things in threes if I can. Coming through, making sure the thread is under the tip of the needle. So I get my little loop. Tighten it a tiny bit and then anchor that one down. So can you see those little petally bits? So I'm not going to do anything else there. So it's whether we want to use, I saw I did have a nice, it's an Orifil, it's a nice sort of paler green that I thought I could use maybe for these blooms, I think. So I will tie my yellow off at the back. And I don't know actually if this one will fit in this needle. Let's see how it goes. Well, it's actually probably even a bit thinner than the yellow. I thought it looked thicker on the reel. Now we're through. That wasn't too painful to watch, I hope. A bit quicker that time. You don't have to use a milliner's needle for it. I just find through this this printed fabric it works really nicely. So I wonder if maybe I'll go up the edges of this one in this pail. So I might just do running type back stitch. So I'm actually coming back after each stitch and then poking it out so that I'm not having to go, I'm just working on the front of the fabric. So I'm then bringing the needle out a bit ahead of where the thread is and then coming back in through that same hole and then again popping out a bit ahead of where the thread is. Back in and then popping. And then this time I'll just come back to just where the flower, because the flower sits in front of the little, oops, almost stitched through my fabric at the back as well. You could also do this in a hoop, but when I'm working on the front of it, it's fine to kind of, yeah, do it this way. And because I've backed it onto the fabric, it's sort of not getting buckled up, and because I'm using quite thin, like regular sewing cottons as well. So yeah, you don't need expensive embroidery threads. You can use, yeah, regular sewing cottons, and all of these are all second-hand vintage sewing cottons. I got two lovely sewing kits, which turn out they're from the same family, I assume from the same lady at the op shops in Beechworth. Probably when you're watching this video, I won't have shown you the little haul from there. But I couldn't go past some sewing kits filled with threads, and threads in colours that I don't necessarily have the colours. Even some of these, like this one, I don't have a bright sort of almost fluoro coloured cotton. So it was a good. And when they're things like Gutermann cottons, they can be quite expensive. I saw them even just in the local shop in town. I think they're $6.75, and the largest sewing kit I only paid $7 for it, and it was filled with multiple cottons. So I'm already ahead. Yeah, mainly look for colours that I don't already have, or colours that I use often and I'm going to get through. Because I do quite a bit of stitching with regular sewing cotton. I like it for the fine detailing. I even do quite a bit of thread painting with it, which is almost more like a thread sort of stitching, or sketching, sorry, not stitching, sketching. Just working my way down this side, and then we'll move on for the second half of the video, I think, to do the little tag. I was going to show you how I just stitch around the little shapes with regular sewing cotton. I can start that potentially as well, although it's really just a running stitch around them. So whether I need to, probably don't need to demonstrate that. It really is just a... So I might leave that there. I could use even, will I use this one around this one? Could do that. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. So I'll show you how I do the stitching around. I'm going to use this pale green, I think, for that. And what I might come up here and do, actually, before we leave this area, I might whip these stitches, because it'll just give me a more sort of continuous border. If you can see, they look a little bit more sort of like a little bit more sharp, whereas when you whip the stitches by popping out and then passing your thread under each stitch, you get a nice wrapped continuous sort of edge. You can pass it through if you find your needle's catching. This one's not. You can use the eye of the needle to pass it that direction underneath. So basically like this, if you find that you're getting catching on your thread. Do it that way. And what you'll see is it just gives you a really nice sort of continuous effect rather than looking like individual stitches. So it's a good way to kind of soften an edge, if that's the right term for it. So you're just passing your needle the same direction under each of your back stitches that you've put in place. And then at the top I might just anchor it down, and then I'll pop up again next to the first stitch that I want to whip on the other side. So I'll just pop up about there, turn my piece upside down, and then I'll just bring my needle through each of the stitches. Oops. So we're going to go walk along the canyon walk probably a bit later on. It's so nice just over at the river. We can just walk down from where we're staying. So yeah, it's not a hard stitch, the whipped stitch, but it's a very handy stitch because now you can see it's got a nice smooth edge to it. So I just take it back into the fabric and tie it off at the back like this. And then we can use the same thread and we can do just the stitching around that other little just a regular running stitch around the other little flower design to kind of make it look like it's stuck on the page. So the other thing I didn't show you was I'd used some lace across in the design. They had like little bits of sticky tape, but then I used some rickrack here and a little piece of lace there, which I stitched down as well. So what I'll do is I'll just do a little running stitch like this, take it through to the back. Oops, try not to catch the rickrack. It's always the problem when you attach things that are a bit dimensional on the page. And then I'll have it come up over here. So I'm just stitching around the sort of perimeter, just a little bit out from the piece. Just like I've done around the others, but I'm using this green this time just for a bit of interest, and it'll kind of link the pieces across the page as well quite nicely, I think. So I'm just doing a little running stitch working again on the front, so I'm just passing my needle in and out rather than stab stitching, doing it more as the sort of continuous stitch. And just following around the perimeter of this flower, which actually goes over the top of the other flower, but it looks like they were then stuck on the page sort of in that order. Just adds nice detail, and it also anchors the two bits of fabric together without having to do, for example, a cantha stitching all over the page. And then I think it just nicely draws the eye to each of the elements. And again, it's just a nice tactile thing that if someone's feeling the page, they can feel all the lovely stitching. So again, when I've stuck my page to the fabric, or my fabric page to the base fabric, I've just used a bit of the Yoo-hoo glue, which just holds it nicely, but it doesn't create anything difficult to stitch through, and it doesn't leave any residue. And in fact, the Yoo-hoo glue will wash out if you wanted to wash it after you've stitched it. It will fully wash out. I haven't tried washing these printable fabrics, but it does say on them that they can be used in quilts that can be washed. They do suggest that if you're going to do that, you give them I think there's a little process to wash them straight after you've sort of printed to remove any excess colour that hasn't been absorbed by the fabric. but the fabric's obviously been treated with something that makes it mostly sort of colour fast once you've done that process. But I'm not planning to wash my book because it's going to have cardboard in it, so, and it shouldn't get dirty. If it gets a bit dusty, it'll just look vintage, won't it? I suppose down the track, if I ever wanted to, I could always take it apart, take the cardboard out, and reassemble as well. Come down here, come around this way. Again, I'm just scooting my way around the outside, just a bit out from where the flowers are, and just picking up little folds of fabric to put the little running stitches. And I just managed to unthread my, if we have trouble, we won't make you watch that, and we've got a notch. Sometimes it just doesn't want to continue to play ball, does it? Let's just see if we can. Goodness gracious me, what's going on there? Why have we got a knot there? I think we've got the knot out. Question will then be, can we easily rethread the needle and finish this little piece? Can we do it? Oops, we've managed to, again, sliver, you'll just see it sometimes just gathers up, gets a tiny bit of the thread, but then makes it sort of gather up, not properly. I think we've got it this time. Yes, we have. Yay. Come down this side. Just doing our little gathering stitches. Maybe one more there. And I'll pop it down here. And I've just got to pop out over this side, and then we're almost around. And then I'll just put one little stitch across the end. And then I'll give you a proper look at it once I've tied it off on the back. There we go. There's that little one around there. Again, just adds some really nice little visual interest to it. And I think it's quite nice having it in that colour tone. So let me just put that little needle aside. And then we can do some work on the tag. So what I've done is created a tag on the front that says "For Fanny." And what gave me inspiration is that Fanny worked with the botanist of the colony of Victoria, Baron Ferdinand von Müller, and he ended up naming a flower after Fanny, which is Asteraceae helipterum Charlesley, which is like her surname of Charlesley. But I guess with the Latin, because the botanical name's normally Latin. So what I did was wrote it on using my friction marker onto this lovely linen that I got from the reverse art track. And I've been stitching that, but I thought we could do the last of that stitching. On the front I did, again, wrote it down and stitched it with some lovely green wool that I had. Here I'm using a Wonderful variegated thread, number 8. So you can put the kettle on if you want, Alex. I think he's trying to be quiet. Having a bit of cup of tea. It's an afternoon for a cup of tea. I've got my cup of tea here, got some nice lemon, ginger and manuka honey. Or maybe he's having his coffee actually, maybe he's having his leftover coffee from earlier. And he's going to heat it up in the microwave. Had a huge lunch of chicken parmigiana at the Wandy pub. I think we're both feeling rather full. And Travis is feeling rather snoozy. He's finally worked out that he does like going out for lunch with us because he gets some nice little treats afterwards. He used to sometimes get a little bit like a little bit whiny when he was waiting for things. So I'm just stitching the A here. Alex is just making me laugh. He's being silly in the kitchen. I don't know if you could hear his pretend sound effects that he was making. Hopefully not. But it's Father's Day, I suppose, so we'll let him get away with that. So I'm just using a split stitch for the letters, where I do a little stitch forward and then I bring my needle up inside. And again, I find this is a really lovely stitch to use for lettering, because it gives you a really nice look. So I could have used all one colour throughout, but I just thought, nah. And the flower, this particular flower has like a yellow bloom with green stems. So I thought it's kind of nice because this variegated thread almost has a yellowy look to it. So, and then we're going to decorate the tag with some Liberty fabric and a little baby Suffolk puff and some vintage lace. So I thought it might be nice to do that together. I've already sewn a little very vintage linen button on it. It's quite got quite a bit of staining on it, so I thought that's rather nice. Generally with a split stitch you work in one direction, but sometimes I'll kind of work backwards. Just going to put an extra stitch in just to hold these two where I want them. You can sometimes do an E. I think Rachel does hers this way, almost like a little lazy daisy stitch for the loop of the E. So I'm just working my split stitches backwards here, but that's not a problem. It's just easier because I can kind of hold the tag where you can see it this way around. So there we are, and I'll just tie that off. So I just did that last night while I was watching some other videos. Thought it would take me quite a while, but I think I'm getting better at doing letters. So plans for this are, what have I got? I've got this little bit of Liberty fabric. It was from a scrap of Liberty fabric, and I was thinking that we will put that so this will be the front of the tag. So I was thinking that will come over like that, and then I've got a lovely sort of lacy bit. Oh, and in fact, yeah, actually we'll put this on first. I was thinking it'd be nice if the lace kind of came across a bit like that and then came round to the edge of the tag. Again, just playing with the edge that was already on the lace, and then I think I'll bring it over to the other side. And I've got a little Suffolk puff that I thought I'd use on the front, and one of my I've got my little matchbox that I made as part of my housewife, and I've got some of my beautiful vintage mother of pearl buttons, so I thought I might use one of those in the centre of the little Suffolk puff, and then have this coming up like that. So that's what I think the design will be, and then I'll bring that over to the back. So I guess first of all we probably need to stitch down this but I don't want to stitch my tags together yet, do I? Or can I stitch them together? I'll still need to be able to slide my card into them. Or maybe I need to stitch this onto here first. That's what I'll do, I think, with a sort of an equal distance. So let's grab some thread. Should I try and use my tiny little needle again, see how I go? Okay, let's grab this one. Yeah, it's just thinking about what order you want to do your things in. Am I going to be able to get this threaded? If not, we will revert to another. There we go. Again, just flipped the ends of my thread and it worked. The sun's coming out beautifully now. It'll be lovely when we go for a walk a bit later on. So I want to have them about the equal distance, doesn't have to be exact. And I'll just overlap this cotton a tiny bit, or this, Liberty a tiny bit over the end. And then I just want to stitch it down. And I just want to do tiny little invisible stitches on the front, but then longer. How come I always get a knot before I've even got one stitch in? How can that be, Christine? Why are we knotting here? Probably because I was faffing around a bit. Sometimes you just gotta go. It doesn't have to be perfectly lined up, Christine. It can just be. And when I stitch the tags together, it'll be getting some more stitching anyway, so just needs to be enough to hold the. Well, I just put a clip on, that might help me actually, so I'm not constantly turning frontwards to backwards. So yeah, invisible stitching is where you do a tiny little nip of a stitch on the front and then do a much longer stitch on the back, the side that you're not going to be seeing. And so it's good with something like this to think how it's all going to go together, because you wouldn't have wanted to sew the tag together first before you'd done your stitching of your writing, because otherwise you'd see the stitching coming through on the other side. So yeah, just good to kind of work out your design first. These fabric tags are great to make. You can make them as Christmas fabric tags. Could make them as perpetual tags and just use them year after year with your family if you didn't want to always be buying new tags. And you can even make them so you can then insert and pull out a bit of card in the middle, so where you could write a fresh message each year. So, I wonder if I could, just to make it easier, I think I might just stitch down, because I can just stitch down the outside where the Liberty fabric is. I just don't want to stitch too far into the interior, because then I won't be able to fit my card in. But I do want to hold this in place. So I'm just angling through a bit so that I do work my way down, but still just with little nipping stitches on both sides. So by angling my needle sort of forward, I then pop up a bit further down the piece. Okay, so that's anchored down there. And then, yeah, maybe I can just do, maybe I'll just do a regular running stitch on the front. And no, I don't want to do that. That's probably okay. Not the end of the world. So I just want to keep it a little bit, so I will just do a little running stitch down here, unless I do, no, I think I'll do running. Stick with the plan, Christine. I can always trim the card a bit if I find that it won't fit in flush. Just trying to keep my running stitch neat. I didn't want to have a running stitch down here. I could have tied it off, but I think it kind of adds to the charm actually. Just makes it look like it is a tag. And yeah, it doesn't look too messy on the back. Sort of just blends in with the design really. And with our stitching, we do want the stitching to kind of be a feature of the piece. That's what slow stitching is all about. Okay, I need to now anchor this piece down. So in fact, I'll need to put an invisible stitch in there. And I'll just pop sort of back, angle my needle and just put a stitch in it over here as well. Like that. And that will be almost enough to kind of hold it in place, I think, for now. Unless I want to then just, maybe I will come down and continue to do the little running stitch. So that's like that. And then I'll just secrete the end, I think, in between the two bits. I come through to a knot on this side actually. Almost like a little French knot to hold, to anchor that, and then I'll just secrete it back into itself. It'll be getting some more stitching anyway. So that's that end done. And then I want to put some of this lace over and around. Was it this piece or was it the other piece I was going to use? Can't even remember now. Maybe it's this piece. Actually, this piece is probably big enough, so we might use this one. Because I need to do that before I put the little Suffolk puff and button on. So we'll quickly get this one anchored down. So again, I can work through from the back with longer stitches. Just capturing bits of this as I go around. Mainly want to capture the sort of the edges as well, because I don't want them catching when I'm pulling this in and out of the page. Not that it will be pulled out every day or anything. But I like this fabric because it's got that sort of wild field look about it as well. Just keep it sort of positioned as I stitch it so it stays where I want it. And I suppose I wouldn't even need to necessarily stitch this over to the other side. It could just kind of sit out a bit from the piece too, so we can have a look how it looks when we're done. Oops, almost came through both layers of the tag, which I don't want to do yet. I do kind of like it sticking out from the tag. We'll have to have a look on the back whether we think it needs to be wrapped over the surface. It's probably something I can still do even once the card is in if I needed to, because I can just sort of run my needle through the fabric without going through the card if we need to do that. But I will need to put the Suffolk puff and the button on first before I put the card in. So I want it to overlap here a little bit. I love just making these little pieces, little tags, little hidden pieces. Just adds interest to your creations. Just come down the bottom and catch these ones as well. As I say, it's great to use the ratty side of the lace. I didn't even have to cut it. It was already this way. And that way you don't waste any of your beautiful vintage, or this would actually probably be an antique lace. I think I got it in a bunch of goodies from a lady in Tasmania, and her father had been an antique dealer, and she had a caseload of laces, and this was the last of her laces. Use the last of the thread just to capture these pieces down here, and we'll be pretty good, I think. And I do think I like it poking out, which we'll still be able to see from the back, so we kind of get the benefit of it on the back as well. Let's have a look. Let's just tie off. So you can see I've gone all the way around catching the lace. So yeah, that will actually look quite nice, and then it kind of keeps this a focus, but we can still see the lace. If I overlap the lace over, yeah, I think I prefer it sticking out. I think that one's a little bit too sticky outy, so I might just take that little tiny bit off. Okay, now let's get and I'll just use a more regular needle for this, I think. What colour do I want? I think I want this thread. There's my other needle gone, there it is. Hopefully my other needle fits through the button holes. I'll first attach the Suffolk puff on. So again, I just want to attach it through this top bit of the tag, because we don't want to have the two tags anchored together yet. And don't know what I've done with the button I pulled out a moment ago, so I'll just pull another lucky button out. Oops. Except we need to come through to the front first. Through to the front. Do our button. And hold that there for a moment to keep it in position. So this was just a little Suffolk puff I made with my tiny Suffolk puff maker. But you can do them just freehand, but I love these small little ones. I think they're very sweet. And again, this will stop it slipping all the way into the little pouch. So I thought it's good to have something a bit dimensional on the front. Oops, managed to gather some stuff. Could have had a nice little embellishment of random threads there. So I think that's enough on the stitching to hold that in place. I do love this linen. It's such a beautiful thick linen, and it would have just been a fabric sample from the reverse art truck. Probably a beautiful Italian linen sample, I think. Okay, so now we can, I think, let's just ponder. Have we done enough stitch? We still need to stitch around the outside. We probably actually still need to stitch these little bits down at this end. So do I want to do, no, I won't do a feature. Won't do a feature colour. I think I'll just do it in the white, the off-white. Using my thicker needle, we'll see how that goes. I think it should be fine. Alex is having a very relaxing time out on the deck by the looks of it. I don't think he's eager for me to finish up so we can go for our walk. We've still got plenty of time left in the arvo. We're one of the first ones there for the lunch. It was actually lovely. They gave us a little Father's Day bag of goodies with a wine, some beef jerky, and a beer stubby holder, and a sticker in a lovely bag that said Happy Father's Day. That was nice, just for the people that had reserved, because they do like people to reserve tables so they know how many are going to be coming out. Okay, now I might just try and do it from the front, but I just don't want to get the back stuck, so I might just have to do it this way. Again, I'll just do a little running stitch. I think I could have done invisible stitching, but I don't mind the running stitch detail. There we go. And then I might do something naughty and just pass my thread down to the other side so I don't have to tie it off again. So the thread will just pass down the back of the piece. And then I will do, again, making sure I'm not stitching through the two layers, but just trying to hold this where it needs to, hold it where it needs to be. Put my little running stitches in. There we go. And then I'll do the final little stitches down here. Yeah, I quite like the stitches actually, the visible stitches. Quite sweet. I'll pop out down the bottom. Okay, then we can put our card in and we'll just see if it still fits okay and gives us enough room around the outside to sew around. I think it does. And so what I might do, just to help it stay in place, is I will just put a little bit of glue on it on one side, slide it in, bring it forward even a smidgeroo, like that. And then, yeah, maybe I'll just use the white, seeing I've got the thread down here. Maybe we'll just go around in white. got a little thread coming off the side, but it's not super frayy, so I don't, oops, sorry, I just dropped a reel on the floor. It's okay, Travis. It was just Mummy dropping things. I think I just wake him up from his little slumber. He's just stuck his head up and gone, Mum, what's that sound? Very inconsiderate, wasn't it, Travis? So just trying to keep it semi-neat on the front and back, but it doesn't have to be super perfect. Oh, and have I got the one thing I should have checked? Yeah, it is up the correct way. The number of times that I've done that when I've been in a video and not been paying attention. But I think we all do it. I do like my YouTubey friends who make videos, and yeah, they share the whole process, and that's what I try and do. Oops, let's just... It's actually nice with this off-white because it kind of then goes with the lace colours. I could have used a green as well, could have used a wool, could have done like an over blankety stitch as well. Possibilities are endless, really. No rules. Just see where your imagination takes you when you're working on these sorts of things. But for me, just a regular running stitch. And yeah, the card's going to work well inside, I think, just to give it robustness when it's in the pocket. So it's not all flippy floppy when it's sliding in and out. Just make sure it's sort of lining up. Okay. I think it's slightly longer at that end. Does that mean that it was longer all along, or has it sort of lost its sort of direction a little bit? Probably fine if I give it a little trim so that it lines up better. I'll pull this up here. How's that lining up? Still think it's a tiny bit too long at this end now. I'll just trim that down a smidgeroo. I think I should use my other scissors for this edge as well. Okay. To go under where the button is. Doesn't really matter too much here on the front either because we've got the lace. Reminds me of one of those sort of vintage luggage labels. That was kind of the design I was thinking of when I cut it out. Oops, that one's gone a little bit too much forward. Let's just re-emerge there, I think. Oops, try not to catch on the lace. There we go. Got another thread caught in it. All the fun of the fair. Almost done. Just got to come down this side and then we will be done with our tag. I was going to possibly put a little bit of ribbon on the end of it, but I think I quite like it like this. I'll show you the ribbon I was thinking of, and then you can tell me in the comments if you think it needs the ribbon. But I think I'm inclined to leave it as is. I can always slip the ribbon under the button if needed. But yeah, we're almost done. Just got to come down here. It's Alex tiptoeing past, not Travis tip-tapping past. Well, he wasn't really tiptoeing. Alex doesn't really tiptoe, so he's a bit tall to tiptoe. And then I think I can just leave these ones not stitched down. I suppose I could go across, couldn't I? Do I want to? But I haven't done them across there. And I think I'll leave those ones as is. Because it's stitched at the end. I don't mind that sits up a little bit. So I think that's pretty good. Just put a stitch over the top here. Tie it off. Oops. Always though, I do tell you every time I'm about to finish up, I get a little something that happens. Bring it up actually and just anchor this bit down a smidge better. There we go. Put a knot in place and another knot to be sure. Okay. And then pop my needle out like that. So the bit of what I was thinking, if I wanted to, is I could have had this little pinky taggy bit on, which is still quite nice, but I think it will look rather lovely just the way it is when it just slides into, let's get our pocket looking the way a pocket would actually look again. And so it will just sit out from the page just like that. So I think that will be fine. I don't think it really needs the ribbon, and this will stop it going all the way into the page, and then you'll get it out. It says for Fanny, and then it's got the flower that was named after her, the beautiful vintage button and the vintage button and Suffolk puff on the front. So no, I'm pretty pleased with that. So I think I'm almost done with the stitching on it. I might add the odd little bit of stitching. I could stitch around the butterfly, for example. I could still stitch around this tiny, sort of this quite faint design here. I've already done the butterfly over there, done those ones up there. So yeah, I think, and unless I want to do some more stitching on some of the leaves here. But I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I stitch with cotton, and I hope you enjoyed the making of this little tag. Thanks everyone. Bye.